Hi everybody, I'm Curtis Eustace with Curtis Eustace Photography. Today we're going to talk about white balance and how it works and why it's important. So, white balance. It's one of those things that we don't really think about, but is really sort of important. And the reason we don't think about it is because our cameras pretty much take care of our white balance for us for the most part. But if you're a commercial photographer or a photographer who is doing this for a living, we really pay attention to white balance. So what is white balance? Well, white balance is basically a standard by which the camera perceives color. And what I mean by that, so we walk into a room that has tungsten lights in it. Tungsten lights are different than daylight. So back in the film days, when we used to have film cameras, the film that we used to buy was what we called daylight balanced. In other words, it's balanced for the color temperature of the sun. Everything else would appear a different color. So in other words, if I walked into a room with that daylight balanced film and took a photograph in tungsten light, everything would appear yellow. If I were to walk into a fluorescent room with fluorescent lights as our primary light source, things might look green. So basically the film was balanced to daylight. And then when I go outside daylight, everything looks normal. So with modern cameras and digital photography, our cameras actually are programmed to try to analyze the environment and get down to what we consider to be our neutral white balance, or tries to makes everything like neutral gray. So it does its best job to do this. So when we walk into a room, a camera will automatically seek out what it thinks is white, and then it'll adjust the white balance of the camera for that color temperature of the room. So if we walk into a tungsten room and it sees a white piece of paper, then it might adjust that white piece of paper and make everything look normal. And it might realize that it's in a tungsten room or it lights tungsten. But it doesn't always work quite as well as that. Sometimes when we still take a photo, it can't determine what is white and what is not. So some of the ways to tell a camera which way is white is to actually color what they carry around, what they call a white balance card. So there's several different things that we can do with a white balance card. The first one here, this is a little teeny tiny one, and I use this all the time. And so this is certified neutral white balance card, and it's actually called white balance reference card. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that or not. White balance reference card. So it's been tested and scaled. So the color temperature of this, when I run my eyedropper over it, will be straight across the board, one temperature. And then I just take this for the light source, click on it when I'm in my software, whether it's Capture One, Photoshop, or Lightroom, and then it should balance the scene. The old standard of white balance would be an 18% gray card. This would be 18% gray card. And so we don't typically use this for white balance. You can use this for white balance. I prefer the lighter color than this, but this is 18% gray. This is a known value. So we know exactly that this is 18% gray, and that when we sample it, it's going to give us an accurate representation of what color temperature the white is in the room. So the third way to do it, and there's lots of different ways to do it, but these are the three ways that I use, is actually to use what we call an X-Rite color checker. Now the color checker has a whole palette of different colors, and I typically don't use the whole color palette, but over here in the bottom right corner is the white. So I'll click on that in white. Now if you have the software and you're using Adobe Lightroom, they actually make a software that you can, if you take a photograph in the scene, you have the subject hold it, the first shot, take a photo of it, and then you shoot in that particular light situation. You can run a profile. The software will create a profile for that particular light situation. Now, as soon as you change light situations or change the light, you have to take another photo of the light checker or the passport. So, and then create a new profile for that new lighting situation. This really only works in Lightroom because Lightroom uses its own profiles. If you use Capture One uses an ICC profile, so you can't actually create a profile like you can in Lightroom with a color checker. So pretty much, I just use the white balance card. It's easy to carry around. It's also easy to lose, so I keep a couple of them with me, and then I use this, and it works really well. So when we're taking photographs too, so if, let's say you want to take a photograph and make a better sunset. You're taking this beautiful sunset. Have you ever taken a sunset and then when you get it back and you look in the camera and the colors just look washed out and blah? It's because the camera's trying to find neutral gray or the 18% gray and trying to white balance to it. It doesn't know that you're trying to take a photograph of a sunset. A lot of cameras will actually have a sunset setting in it. And then what it does is it adjusts the color temperature down to the lower part of the spectrum to actually saturate those orange colors and make it look like a sunset. So anyway, if you have any questions about color temperatures, about using an 18% gray card or a white balance card, please ask them in the comments below and maybe I can answer some questions. But that's just a basic video on how to, on why sometimes our photos look kind of weird and things that you can do to correct it. So listen, have a wonderful day and we'll see you next time.